Hello, friends. Welcome to your restorative practice. We are going to um, have 4 specific shapes that we're going to make today with our bodies. And since we have 30 minutes, we'll be in those shapes for longer than we usually hold things. So, as usual, it's very important to have props around you that will create a nice cushiony, soft way for your body to kind of rest into this practice. You can do it on your couch, you could do it in bed, and if you do want to practice on the floor like I'm going to, please have at least one blanket, maybe two, and a couple of couch cushions or a couple of pillows. And then one other thing that is optional, but it might be nice to have, would be something that would work like a strap. So you could take a towel or a belt or a tie or a dog leash and use that like you would a yoga strap. Okay, and so you can see how I have my mat set up. I have a blanket that's folded in the middle of my mat to support my hips because we're going to start belly down. The end of my mat, my feet are going to be kind of resting against the wall. So you can see the short edge of my mats just resting against the wall. Again, this is optional, but if you do have a little bit of wall space, you don't need a lot. You could close a door and slide your mat up against a door or use the edge of a couch. That might be nice to have too. And then that pillow or bolster, couch cushion, will be at the bottom end of your mat because the tops of your feet are going to rest there. Right? So the setup, again, blanket folded in the middle. And this is where my hip points are going to rest, belly down. And then we'll use the strap a little bit later. So you can set that off to the side. I'm just going to reach back and let the tops of my feet, the tops of my ankles rest on top of that pillow or cushion, lower myself down onto the blanket, and then just take a minute here to make sure that my hip points are resting on the cushion of the blanket. And if they're not, and if you need different kind of a support underneath the hips, or if it doesn't feel good, you can get rid of it, right? So add in or take away as works for you. And then a couple of options with the arms. You could take the hands and fold them right underneath the forehead and keep the neck neutral, resting the forehead on the backs of the hands. Or if you want a little bit of a passive stretch for the side of the neck, you could take your elbows wide like a cactus and rest one cheek down. And drawing the shoulder blades away from the spine, relaxing the shoulder blades down the back. Just kind of let the chest rest into the floor. All right, so you can check both of those out and see which one you like best. Elbows wide or hands resting underneath the forehead. And then I will, if you're just doing that passive stretch for the side of the neck, I'll let you know when we're halfway through so that you can change side. So make any adjustments that you need as you settle in here. Always feel free to adjust your props so that they're working for you. And then to the best of your ability, and this takes some time and it takes some practice, it takes some patience, start to settle the physical body. The best way I've found to do this is to just start by tuning into the breath. You might just notice the quality of the breath. Does it feel easeful? Does it feel effortful? And as you're noticing the quality of the breath,
Maybe you begin to naturally deepen the breath. Maybe it takes you a little bit longer to fully inhale without any sense of adding tension or force. And maybe it takes you a little bit longer to exhale. With the belly down and the chest resting close to the floor or whatever you're laying on, you might tune in enough to even notice your heartbeat. If you have your head turned to one side, now would be the time to change that so that opposite cheek is resting and the other side of the neck gets that nice passive stretch. Keep relaxing the shoulders down the back. You relax the jaw, the teeth, the muscles of the face. And tune back into that deep breath here. We'll take about 4 more breaths in this shape. Nice and slow, deep belly breaths. We'll start to slide the hands underneath the shoulders. You can press up to a tabletop briefly just to transition. And if you would like, in your tabletop, Maybe a little articulation of the spine and cat-cow would be welcome. Maybe hips back to the heels for child's pose would feel good. When we're belly down like that, there is just a very, very slight compression to the low back. So it's a little bit of a back bend. And so if your low back's sensitive to that at all, maybe just give it a little love here. And then when you're ready to move on, we'll start to build our next shape. So this will be a variation of legs up the wall, Vipa Riddhi Korani. And what I'd recommend is that you take the blanket that your hips were just resting on, maybe unfold it one, and have that be supporting the back of the head. So I wouldn't suggest adding a pillow or a couch cushion underneath the head because we want the spine to be relatively flat, right? It has a natural S curve, but we don't want the head really tucked into the chin and really extending through the cervical spine. We want it to have a natural curve, okay? And then this cushion at the end of your mat, just briefly slide it out of the way. You can decide to add it back in. I'll show you that option in a few moments. Again, the strap is optional. And if you would like to use it, it's just to gently hold the feet without letting them fall open so that the muscles can really relax and disengage from any effort. That's what our restorative practice is all about. So legs up the wall. I like to get into this by coming into a fetal position. I scoot my hips in contact to the wall, and then I roll over onto my back. And then if I need to, I kind of wiggle so that right and left sits bones feel relatively equal towards the wall. And it's okay if they're not in contact with the wall. Tight tissues in the back body can inhibit that sometimes. Then I'm going to pull my blanket underneath the back of my head so I get that nice padding. If I want to use the strap here, I might tie a little knot here and then just loop it over my feet so my feet can just rest about hip width distance apart and my heels can rest against the wall. And you can use, again, a chair or the edge of a couch if wall space is really hard for you to find. Final inclusion option would be to bend the knees, press into the feet, lift the hips up, and then slide that cushion back underneath the low back. So it's a little bit of an inversion here. The hips get just a little bit higher than the pelvis. And then again, that's an option. It's not a requirement. None of this is required. All of it's optional. Right, so start to settle into your shape, however you're going to create it. Find a comfortable position to rest your arms. Maybe you take the inverse of what we did on the belly. You could take that goalpost shape facing up. You could also rest the hand somewhere on the rib cage or the belly or the chest. Just find a comfortable position for the arms to rest here. Deep breath in through the nose. Maybe you open your mouth and exhale, let the air come out. Maybe try that a couple of times with this idea in mind on the exhale that we're just letting it go, we're letting it rest, whatever it is for you. Let it go, let it rest.
Let the shoulder blades be heavy into whatever you're lying on. Finding length in the spine, the back of the pelvis be heavy. Let the hip bones sink deeply into their sockets. And let the feet, the ankles, the toes, all of that completely relax. Bringing that attention back to the breath, deepening it to the best of your ability without adding force, without adding stress. A few more breaths here. Take about 3 deep belly breaths. If you have your legs extended up the wall and you're using that strap, you can bend the knees, reach up and remove that strap, set it off to the side. We won't really need that anymore. If you're using a cushion underneath the lumbar spine, lift up through the hips and move that out of the way, and then set that cushion off to your right side, right? And so we're going to come into a twist here on our backs. So you can stay where you are at the wall if you can revolve without a lot of tension in the upper body, right? So be mindful of your body, where your tissues are tight and what your body needs. Add that support in and or move away from the wall if it's too hard to twist like this. So we're going to take our legs off to the right where that cushion is waiting for us. You're either going to extend through the legs and rest your legs, that outer right leg, onto that cushion, or you're going to scoot away from the wall enough so that you can bend your knees, and that feels a little bit more gentle on the whole spine. So I want you to pay attention in particular to the upper body, the shoulder blades, the backs of the shoulder blades resting on the mat. If that left shoulder blade is really starting to reach up towards the ceiling and lift off the mat, add more height underneath that right leg. Okay, so maybe you're adding more cushions. Maybe you're adding blankets. Maybe you're placing something in between the thighs. Until that left shoulder starts to relax down to the mat, add more height underneath the right side leg. And then I like to here in a twist, especially in a restorative practice, place one hand on my belly. Could be your right hand. And you could keep extending that left arm off to the side if you like, just to encourage the opening of the chest. I'm going to come back to the anchor of the breath, deep in through the nose. If it's helpful, you could take a few rounds of breath out through the mouth. Practice this idea of letting it go, letting it rest. Whatever it is for you today that you'd like to let go of. If it's really a challenge for you to spend time in silence in this way, don't worry, you're not alone, and it's completely normal, especially if it's not a um, constant practice for you. And so, what might be nice as you're getting used to this, especially in a restorative class, would be to play some gentle background music. And then there's always the anchor of the breath, focusing the attention on this inhale and this exhale. And then this inhale and this exhale. Take about 3 more breath cycles on this side. Start to unwind the legs. So come back through center all the way onto your back and pause there in center. Let's find something symmetrical to rest into. You might hug your knees into the chest. Just take a few breaths here. And so let's see if we can find the value in really slowing down in our restorative practice, even though we know what's coming next. Can you stay with me here for one more breath? And now we can start to set up our second side. So if you're going to use that cushion again, off to the left of your hips or your legs. If you're going to attempt that straight leg rotation, you can lengthen out through the legs and let that left leg fall on top of your cushion or cushions. Right leg follows. You can always move away from the wall also. And you can always bend those knees. You can add as many props as needed underneath that outer left leg until that right shoulder starts to release to the ground and the chest can stay open with relative ease towards the ceiling. Maybe the left hand connects somewhere onto the belly or the rib cage. Maybe the right arm stretches off to the right side. Soften your jaw here, relax your throat. Deep belly breaths. Maybe a few rounds of exhalation through the mouth. Practicing this idea of letting it go and letting it rest. Three more breath cycles. And take your time, unwind. Find that symmetry of the back body resting. And then if you're still up against the wall, I'll invite you to lengthen out fully on your back. So you might come all the way away from the wall. I'm going to set up a Savasana. I'd offer the option of taking that blanket with you, top of the mat to support the back of the head, and the cushion underneath the backs of the knees. And if you're enjoying this sense of grounding with the wall, you can let your feet, the soles of your feet, rest there. Maybe let your feet come a little bit wider apart and let the toes fall out if that feels comfortable on the hips. And then perhaps placing the hands on the belly and the rib cage for a little bit more grounding here. Rolling the shoulders underneath the back. Slightly tilting the chin in just to give the back of the neck a little lengthening. Deep breath in through the nose. Out through the mouth. Shavasana. Let it go, let it rest. Begin to deepen the breath, adding gentle movement to fingertips and toes. Feel free to stay longer in your Savasana if you have the time. Of course, it's always welcome. If you're ready to move on with your day, you can start to bend the knees, roll off to a side, pressing into that top hand, and coming up to an upright seat. Taking a few moments here to adjust so that your shoulders stack over your hips and your ears shift over your shoulders. You can rest your hands on top of your thighs. Let the elbows soften. Let the eyes close. Deep breath in, grow tall. Deep breath out, settle. Just taking a few moments here in quiet contemplation. Noticing how you feel, what you feel, and where you feel it. Close out our practice by joining the hands together at the heart and bowing the chin into the chest, taking a moment to honor our practice with reverence and gratitude. It is my hope that you remember you will always be okay. Find a light that guides you and keeps you safe, and that you have hope, help, and happiness along the way. Namaste, yogis. Thank you all so much for joining me today. It's such a pleasure to share these practices with you. I hope they help. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.